You know, some state governments are planning to initiate contempt proceedings against the AGF, our Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, and Godwin Emefiele, over their refusal to implement the Supreme Court's judgment on the Naira Redesign Policy of the federal government, BKO. What exactly does the presidency want to gain from suffering the people they swore to protect?
They are the ones who can explain why. And I can tell you that our president could not have tried this during his first term. The president loves himself so much to the point that you can actually accuse him of being selfish. The president did not allow this to happen during his first term because he knew it would compromise his desire to be re-elected. Everything that could stand in the way of his re-election, the president did his best to remove. Now, he's behaving like the party that served as the vehicle that put him in power no longer matters to him. This president was told, I've had people say, oh, why did they go to court in the first place? This is a matter that should have been resolved behind closed doors. This is a matter that should have been resolved over dinner, over breakfast. Nigerians are not current. They don't read. Things happen, and those things elude them. The governors of the APC went to Mr. President and told him, don't do this at this time. It will hurt our party. But he chose not to listen. He chose not to listen. He was just bent on stopping vote buying. There is no economic sense in the policy that they have come up with, the Naira Repainting, that they call Naira Redesign, because there's no real redesigning. It's just the colors that they change. There's no economic sense to it. It will not make the Naira stronger against the currencies of the world. Currencies that we used to mock, like the CFA from France, they are now of greater value than our currency. Because we had a CBN governor, we have a CBN governor who is the worst in Nigerian history. A CBN governor who totally failed in managing our currency against other currencies of the world. The Naira had never been this weak. Now, you came up with a policy that has only impoverished our people. Our people want 5,000 Naira. POS operators will take 2,000 extra. We never thought that day could come when Nigeria will be this hopeless. And our clueless leaders will not be able to do anything about it. Now, the governors went to court, tried to get the Supreme Court to intervene because of the pains that this ill-thought-out policy has inflicted on our people. But what did we see? Instead of abiding by the decision of the Supreme Court, which state action on the Naira Redesign thing, the president tried to vary the content of the order of the Supreme Court by coming up with a needless address to Nigerians, an address that made no sense, made no meaning, empty rhyme. At the end of the day, the judgment came. Despite all the noise by some lawyers that Supreme Court should not dabble in monetary matters, Supreme Court assumed jurisdiction. Again, as I said on Journalist Hangouts, the Supreme Court had an obligation to determine whether the CBN obeyed the CBN Act of 2007, because the Act says that you must provide sufficient time. So what was before the Supreme Court was the determination as to whether sufficient time was given for Nigerians for this policy to kick in. And the apex court affirmed that sufficient time was not given, because in some countries of the world, it takes 2 years to get this done. People like Emefiele have no regards for the Nigerian people, total disrespect for the Nigerian people, treating Nigerian people as a sweet wrap on the floor, because it's the sweet wrap on the floor that is worthless. Felt they could treat us just the way they liked. Now they've lost the case in court. They have not made any statement, any categorical statement. The president obviously unhappy that he lost in the court, because he clearly sees himself as bigger than the Supreme Court. He's unhappy that he lost in the court, and he has chosen to keep quiet, not bothering himself about the pains that our people are still going through. This is not a battle an issue to personalize. Think of the pains that those people are going through. People can't pay their hospital bills, not because they don't have money in the banks, but because Emefiele confiscated people's money and chose not to give them their money when they demand for it. A man has millions of naira in a bank, and you tell him to take 2,000 across the counter. It's absolutely crazy. This is what our people have been made to go through. A government that does not want its people to suffer will step in at this time and say, yes, this is what we want. The president has been taciturn. The CBN governor has not given a categorical answer. Banks are paying people old notes, but they are refusing to allow people to make deposits in old notes. So it's total shambles. People can't understand why this is going on. People can't understand why they will vote for a government and the government will be inflicting pain on them deliberately like this. I've never seen anything like this. Government must be accountable to the people. To treat our people in this way shows that the government does not think it is accountable to the people. Or is it because he's just on his way out? He couldn't have done this during the first time. So I support the governor of Kogi State and other governors who have criminalized refusing to take the old notes from people, because the Supreme Court is the final court of the land and his word is final. Mr. President himself is obligated to obey and comply with the directive or order of the Supreme Court. So anyone who fails to take the old naira notes ought to be arrested. And I'm happy that the Kogi State governor has set up a committee now to monitor compliance. Any bank that does not take old notes from people should be shut down. Take away their premises. We can't allow bank staff to be punishing Nigerians in this manner. But I want to believe that now that CBN's criminal silence is being addressed by this by the 10 governors, including significantly Sokoto State governor, who is a PDP governor, because people like the governor of those states who are trying to make this a party affair without thinking about the pains that his people were going through. There is a PDP governor in Tambua amongst these governors. Now they want to institute. They have forwarded the certified true copy of the enrollment order and the judgment of the Supreme Court to the CBN and to the Attorney General of the Federation, because the CBN could hide behind the fact that it had not been served a copy of the judgment of the Supreme Court. Now they've taken the enrollment order, a copy of the judgment, and served on these individuals.
Absolutely. Let
us see whether they will not obey the order of the Supreme Court, because if they do not do that, then they are playing with fire.
Absolutely, BKO. Yeah, you know, before
the Supreme Court talks,
okay,
when the Supreme Court talks, I'm quoting one of the lawyers.
Okay.
They are saying that they expect immediate compliance, and if there's no compliance now, they will commence committal proceedings against the Attorney General and the CBN. this Attorney General is playing with fire.
Absolutely.
Buhari will not be in office forever. By the time Buhari leaves office, he could be in hot water. Just like an Attorney General before him, Andoka. And they can take away his sanction. So he has to actually do what is right. So the lawyer is saying when the Supreme Court talks, the Constitution makes it compulsory for all government representatives and everybody to comply. Right. It is not discretional. You have to obey. It is the last and final court. And that's why we have separation of power. When the Supreme Court talks, it must be complied with by all persons. So that is what one of the lawyers to the 10 governors said. And we expect that in this coming week, these people will behave themselves and stop the needless pain
right, BKO,
and wickedness that we are seeing.